In March of 2021, headlines across the country were filled with stories about Matt Gaetz. The scandal had broken. Matt Gaetz was under investigation for possible sex crimes involving minors. And of course, Matt Gaetz immediately tried to downplay this and say, oh, whoa, well, I'm the victim of an extortion plot. Which, that actually happened to be true. Dude got busted for it. But being the victim of an extortion plot doesn't mean that the thing they were extorting you was about isn't true. In fact, the guy wasn't saying he was going to break the story. He just said, give me money and I might be able to get you a presidential pardon. Because he knew the investigation was taking place. And for the record, this investigation did in fact begin under the watch of Bill Barr at the United States Department of Justice. And of course, all sorts of news has broken since then. We've talked about it here. I've talked about it over at Ring of Fire. But it all began in March of 2021, 10 months ago. 10 months. And Matt Gaetz has not been charged with anything. This is leading a lot of people, and I'm afraid I might be one of them, to believe that Matt Gaetz is not going to be charged with anything. You know, we're seeing lots of movement, public movement, on the investigation into Donald Trump in the state of New York, right? Subpoenas just this week coming out for Don Jr., coming out for Ivanka. We're seeing movement on the January 6th committee. We're seeing movement on all these things that had been relatively stagnant, just like the Matt Gaetz investigation. But with Gaetz, nothing. We got radio silence right now. And we've had it for quite some time. We haven't had any new breaking Matt Gaetz news, any more receipts being revealed by Joel Greenberg, at least publicly. No reporters from the Daily Beast who've done a phenomenal job keeping track of this, but Matt Fuller, I believe, is one of them. Nothing recently. It's as if the investigation ended and nobody even noticed, right? Well, not exactly. Because there is still hope that if Matt Gaetz committed a crime, that he will be charged. And if he did commit a crime, I hope he's charged. If he didn't, then he shouldn't be. It really is that simple. I personally dislike Matt Gaetz, sure. I'm one of his constituents. I'm somebody who, before he was big and famous, he was a bit of a dick to me on Twitter. But personal reasons aside, if he didn't commit a crime, he shouldn't be charged. But it's kind of hard to think at this point that he didn't, right? Because we've seen the receipts. We know that Joel Greenberg, that disgraced Seminole County tax collector, is still cooperating with authorities. That's why he's had his sentencing pushed back twice. That's why he got his total number of charges reduced from 30-something down to 6. He's given them such good information that they're going exceptionally lenient on him. And some of the things that have become public do involve Matt Gaetz and text messages from Greenberg with other women talking about Matt Gaetz and he's going to be there and do you guys do drugs? I mean, the evidence is like almost solid that the dude committed a crime. And the reason I bring this up now is because, yeah, we are 10 months since the scandal broke, but more importantly, we're only 2 months away from Joel Greenberg's sentencing, which means prosecutors, investigators have almost tapped out on what they can get from Greenberg. And if charges have not come yet, when Greenberg, I'm assuming, has to have given up the juiciest stuff about the biggest fish, if we don't have charges yet, or if they're not in the pipeline that we don't know about, I don't think it's going to happen. Is it pretty clear that Matt Gaetz definitely engaged in behavior that we wouldn't want a member of Congress engaging in? Absolutely. I think there's no question about that. The question is, does it rise to the level of criminal behavior? Is there a legitimate excuse for all of this? And that's what the investigators are determining. And unfortunately, I'm starting to think that maybe there were good excuses. Maybe there's alibis. Who knows? I'm not losing hope yet that Matt Gaetz may face justice. But I don't have as much hope as I did a month ago. And I had more hope a month ago than, well, I didn't have as much faith a month ago as I did 6 months ago. I think if there was more movement, I think we would hear something. The only positive is that Matt Gaetz is still taking a big hit from this. Here in his district, his approval rating, last time they polled, had slipped to where his disapproval was higher than his approval. And that's without even getting criminal charges. He's got some pretty serious Republican primary challengers. He's got a good, strong Democrat running against him, Rebecca Jones. He's abandoned his district too. And that, even more than this scandal, charges or not, is what's weighing on the minds of his constituents. We've faced problems, we've had catastrophes, we've had natural disasters. Matt Gaetz is nowhere to be found. That's going to hurt him more than anything else. Unless, of course, the criminal charges come, then yeah, probably going to face a tough re-election. But as it is right now, the guy's already facing a tough re-election, so I think at this point, it may be best to put our hope in somebody dethroning Matt Gaetz than it is with investigators charging Matt Gaetz with a crime.